Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a fascinating new read by Yuval Noah Harari, Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI. Harari takes us on a journey from ancient communication systems to the cutting-edge world of artificial intelligence, exploring how networks have shaped human civilization. Is this the future of technology, or just a historical deep dive? Stick around to find out my thoughts on this brilliant book. Let's get started. Nexus is a sweeping, thought-provoking exploration of how information has been created, shared, and stored throughout human history, leading up to the present day and even into the future. The author masterfully traces the evolution of communication networks, starting from the simplest forms of oral traditions in the Stone Age to the mind-bending complexities of today's artificial intelligence-driven systems. This is a book that not only educates but also inspires a deeper understanding of the critical role information networks have played in shaping human society. From the moment I began reading, I was struck by the author's ability to make what could be a dry and complex subject feel accessible and engaging. The book seamlessly weaves together history, technology, sociology, and even philosophy to present a narrative that's as much about human progress as it is about machines and communication systems. Each chapter is like a window into a different era, allowing the reader to fully grasp the magnitude of the shifts that occurred as new methods of information sharing were developed. One of the strongest elements of Nexus is its treatment of early information networks. The author takes us on a journey to the very beginnings of human society, when language and storytelling were the primary tools for sharing knowledge. The idea that oral traditions and early cave paintings were the first steps in humanity's creation of information networks is not only fascinating but also beautifully articulated. These early forms of communication, while seemingly primitive by today's standards, laid the groundwork for the structured systems we now rely on. The transition to written language and the advent of the first formal information networks, such as cuneiform tablets and Egyptian hieroglyphs, is covered in rich detail. I particularly appreciated how the book doesn't just list historical milestones, but delves into the cultural and societal impacts of these innovations. For instance, the invention of writing wasn't just about recording trade or religious texts. It was a revolutionary way for societies to preserve and transfer knowledge across generations and geographies. The book makes a compelling case that the rise of writing was one of the most significant developments in human history, fundamentally changing how civilizations operated. As the narrative progresses, Nexus explores the rise of more formalized information networks during the classical and medieval periods. The detailed discussion of the Roman Empire's road systems, postal networks, and how these infrastructures were used to maintain control and communication across vast territories was particularly enlightening. I also loved the way the book discusses the role of monasteries and religious institutions in preserving knowledge during the Middle Ages, highlighting the importance of these early scholars in keeping intellectual traditions alive during times of upheaval. The chapters on the Renaissance and the invention of the printing press are perhaps some of the most exciting parts of the book. The printing press is often hailed as one of the most transformative inventions in human history, and Nexus does a stellar job of explaining why. The way the author ties the explosion of printed materials to the spread of revolutionary ideas, such as those seen during the Protestant Reformation and the Scientific Revolution, is both compelling and eye-opening. It's fascinating to consider how much our modern world owes to this single invention, which democratized access to information in ways that would have been unimaginable just a century earlier. Where Nexus truly shines, though, is in its exploration of the industrial age and the dawn of modern communication networks. The chapters on the telegraph, radio, and telephone were full of insights that made me reconsider just how rapidly these technologies transformed the world. The author emphasizes how these innovations didn't just change how people communicated, but they also influenced everything from politics to business to everyday social interactions. It's easy to forget that technologies we now take for granted, such as instant messaging or international calls, had their roots in these earlier groundbreaking inventions. By the time the book reaches the digital age, the pace picks up even more. The discussion of the birth of the Internet and its rapid development is particularly well done. The author provides a comprehensive overview of how the Internet began as a small, military-focused project and evolved into the sprawling, all-encompassing global network we use today. The emphasis on the Internet's capacity to democratize information, while also raising significant challenges such as misinformation and privacy concerns, adds a layer of complexity to the narrative that I found both timely and necessary. Perhaps the most fascinating part of Nexus is its treatment of artificial intelligence and the future of information networks. The book doesn't just end with the present, but dares to look forward, asking important questions about the role AI will play in shaping the next phase of human communication. I appreciated the nuanced take on AI. While the author is clearly excited about its potential, they also don't shy away from discussing the ethical dilemmas and societal risks that come with these powerful technologies. This forward-looking perspective is what sets Nexus apart from many other historical or technological books. It recognizes that the story of information networks is far from over, and that the next chapter could be the most transformative yet. In terms of style, Nexus is written in a way that is both intellectually rigorous and highly readable. The author's enthusiasm for the subject matter shines through on every page. Complex ideas are broken down into easily digestible sections, without sacrificing depth. The book is also rich with anecdotes and real-world examples that make the history come alive. Whether discussing the intellectual exchanges between scholars in the Library of Alexandria or the moment when the first transatlantic telegraph message was sent, Nexus brings history to life in a vivid and engaging way. Overall, Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI, is an essential read for anyone interested in the history of technology, communication, or human society. It's a book that not only provides a comprehensive overview of how we got to where we are today, but also challenges us to think about where we're headed next. For me, this book wasn't just a history lesson. It was a reminder of how interconnected we've always been, and how the networks we build shape not just our world, but our very way of thinking. If you're even remotely curious about how humanity has managed to create such an interconnected global society, I can't recommend Nexus highly enough. It's a fascinating, enlightening, and ultimately hopeful look at the power of information and the networks that carry it.